Priya, can you send a request to Prapchit as well as panelist?
Sure, give me 1 minute. Huh?
Sure. Take care. After you broadcast.
Naveen, you are the host now. Hello, Naveen.
Hi, everyone. Good to see so many of you join 3 to 4 minutes ahead of time. Before we get started, let's quickly do a sound check, shall we? Anil, Gurmeet, Prithvi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very well.
Great. Audience, can you please let me know if you could hear us clearly? We'll give you 25 to 30 seconds. And in the meantime, shall we do a quick poll, shall we? Okay. I see most of you can hear me properly. I get a yes from most of you here. I guess we can get started then. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's great to have all of you over here. I see a good number of attendees. Looks like a full house. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Krishan from Freshworks, and I lead ISV partnerships for APAC region. I'll be moderating the webinar. Welcome you all to the webinar titled Better Employee Experience Leads to Better Customer Experience. We have our partners from Xoxoday and KPI Soft. Xoxoday is one of our premium partners, and I've been working with them over the last several months in building some interesting use cases. Later today in the session, we'll show you one such use cases as well. KPI Soft is a platform that helps manage performance and increase employee engagement. Before we jump into the topic, just wanted to let you know that this is a live webinar, so please feel free to put in your questions in the Q&A section. We'll take the questions at the end of the webinar. We'll try to answer as much as possible. Unanswered questions can be addressed after the webinar. Please feel free to write to us as well. The entire recording of the webinar will be available to you. We'll send the link from where you can access it over an email later. Let's get started. According to a poll conducted by Gallup, a US-based consulting firm, actively disengaged employees cost US companies somewhere between 450 to 500 billion in lost productivity per year. And this doesn't stop there, right? Dissatisfied employees tend to spend less time focusing on their job duties and spend more time talking with co-workers why they're unhappy at work. They also take their unhappiness back home, discuss this with friends and family. This is detrimental to the entire ecosystem, right? There's another interesting stats by Hay Group that says organizations with strong employee engagement score generate revenue growth at a rate 2.5 times higher than companies with lower marks. That sounds good, right? Leaving you with that thought, let me introduce you to the speakers for today's session. We have Gurmeet. Gurmeet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Krish. So, hey, I'm Gurmeet. I lead sales at Xoxoday and account management, wherein we manage existing set of customers. Predominantly, I come with a background of HR, tech, and have a deeper understanding in terms of how tech can enable better employee engagement and better communication within the organization. It's a pleasure being on this session, and thanks for having me here on the session today.
We have Anil from Freshworks. Anil, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Krishant.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. As Krishan said, my name is Anil. I'm part of the Freshworks HR team. I currently lead HR initiatives for the sales and marketing teams of Freshworks globally. Thank you.
Prithvi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for the invite, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. My name is Prithvi. Spent most of my life on the other side of the table, working as the leading HR for HCL Technologies, and prior to that at Accenture. Over the last 3 years, I've been building and taking to market digital platforms for KPI Soft and overseeing our marketing function. So I look forward to exchanging thoughts today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, speakers. Employee wellness has always been important, right? What has changed now and what could have been better, Gurmeet?
I think, like you rightly said, employee engagement, workforce engagement has been and will always be important. The methodologies of doing so has evolved over time. If you were to look back a decade and today, and obviously a decade ahead in time, things will change. So from a relevant standpoint, employee engagement has and always be relevant, will be relevant. COVID has added an element of how much of face-to-face engagement can be done for the fact that teams are not at the office. We are not at full capacity right now in most of the organizations, and that's where the whole solutioning will now move to a different angle, wherein people should be able to use gamification and technology to make sure people get gratified on time, because the key is motivation and the key is the fact that it needs to be done on time. There's a saying that incentive delayed is incentive denied. Similarly, appreciation delayed is appreciation denied. So we will have to figure out methods of doing this by tech and do it fast at this point in time. So like I was saying, happy, engaged, motivated workforce will always be important from a business continuity standpoint, and technology will play a very large, very strong role in making sure things are done on the right time and in the right methodologies. This is where I'd like to bring in Anil. Anil, maybe if you want to comment, take this ahead from here.
Sure, Gurmeet. Thank you so much. The role of employee engagement has always been very prominent and important for any organization, no matter whether it's a product company or a services company or whichever industry you take. Even within this employee engagement, the importance of a manager or a leader significantly increases the chance of the employee engagement levels being at a much higher level, close to 70% as per the recent Gallup survey. Now, if you take a step back and understand how, over a period of last 2 decades, how employees look at a job or an opportunity or their career has significantly changed, where earlier an individual would predominantly look at a paycheck or employee satisfaction, how's the relationship with the manager, what are my areas of improvement or weakness. But now, if you look at it, there has been a transition in the way we look at our career. Now, slowly we started focusing on what's the purpose of my job? How do I add value to the overall organization? What are my areas of development? And instead of a manager, I look forward to a coach who can help me in my growth journey. And also, instead of an annual performance review, I would always look at a continuous performance feedback, which has more weightage and has immediate course correction opportunity available for us. Plus, not only looking at areas of weakness, why not focusing on building your career basis your strengths? Now, this is how engagement has predominantly taken, I would say, a slow turn, but rapidly increasing at this moment with challenging times in COVID. And with COVID playing a significant role in most of us working from home, this becomes even more challenging into how do you transform this actual day-to-day face-to-face conversations into more of a virtual conversation and a virtual relationship. So as we discussed, we would look forward to more inputs from our speakers today and would love to take it forward from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Anil. Prithvi, I was told that you have some interesting inputs over here. Could you please take it forward?
Sure. So I think the interesting comments from both Gurmeet and Anil and very real. I think what we have seen with this crisis or that has emerged is possibly one takeaway that we've all had is that one should never waste the opportunities that a crisis throws up. And I think this is what we are seeing right now in the space of engagement as well, to see how practices there can evolve. One of the things that we are really seeing is that employees are asking much more for, as they become more independent and start working in more remote or distributed manners. I think the traditional ways of engagement around, which evolved from, I always say it used to evolve from entertainment to satisfaction. It became fashionable to talk about experience. I think that experience that people are looking for has to result really in an ability for people to make better decisions about their work, about their workplace, and about who they work with. And I think though that's what people have started looking for. I think working from a place where they are using apps and platforms and tools where the UI and UX is much more consumer friendly compared to some of the enterprise apps that exist in many organizations today is really hampering, is coming sort of really in the face of what an employee expects. Earlier, they would sort of, I think, deal with it because, hey, this is what my office offers. But now every day they're ordering food on a much more friendly app and then dealing with managing performance on a much more difficult interface. So the need for consumer grade experience to really enable performance has become a much more significant issue. The third thing, of course, is really around how do I help people make decisions better? Should I go to work today? Which teams am I working with? What is my role in it? Earlier, you could just get together in a meeting room and have that discussion. Today, the role of analytics and insight, and which is actionable, is becoming significantly more. And I think if what has really happened overall as we look at engagement is the acceleration of digitization is really changing some of the expectations that are there to deliver that engaged employee in the enterprise. And companies who have been already on that transformation journey are possibly a little ahead. Companies who've not been ahead, who've not invested in digitization will probably need to catch up and do so really quickly if they really want to unlock the people capital that they have in their organizations today. If I sort of look at it ahead, if I go to the next slide, most of the systems, and I'm sure, Xoxoday and Freshworks, some of the examples that you will give today, I think we're really moving in that direction where people are looking for the interactions with tools and technology using, where the information is translated into insight, which inspires action. I think the days of simply having systems of record or systems of transaction which enable you to do a few things, even systems of just, engaging people are, so I think really now a bare minimum. I think people are really looking for, with all this data that these people management systems created, how am I actually using this to make a difference and make an impact in my organization? So I think even HR and line managers, we really need to rethink our mindset as to how to make that happen. The other thoughts that I wanted to sort of deep dive into is really this issue of consumerization of our experience. And, I'm sure, both my colleagues will share examples from their company because I think they've been in this space for some time. But I really see a difference in the experience in the consumer market and the experience in the workplace. So while we are looking for this shift towards empowerment and about making better decisions, the experience that people have in doing so, unfortunately today, still has not really evolved in most organizations. I think we have some great examples coming out, but we really need to rethink that it should not take us 90 days to hire people and to move people through the recruiting process, or we should really be able to get an HR transaction done by ourselves rather than raise a service request. I should be able to learn whenever I want to learn. Career paths are changing. I should be able to get recommendations around that. And really, I should be not looking at a performance assessment. I think Anil talked about that a little bit, but I really looking for a performance coach. And those are the things that, even at KPI Soft, we've been trying to resolve and really trying to see how technology can be brought to fore to sort of change the experience in the workplace. I think now that people are working remotely and in a distributed space, the demand will not be, okay, this is my HR tech strategy, or this is how I want to evolve. The user will say that if I don't get this, I cannot work from home in an efficient manner. And that's a good thing for enterprises, in my view. The last point I wanted to make, if I move to the next slide, is really this issue of, we've been, if you are in HR today and you're presenting to the board and you don't have the word AI somewhere, you're considered somebody, who's sort of the past. And if we can just show all the slides and, we can work through the animation, what we've really seen is that there is the way we need to use information really needs to start answering questions that people are expecting. So, most of the leaders that I have worked with in many of my organizations are quite tired of getting reporting and HR reports available to them. Today, the employee is looking for, the leader is looking for answers to these questions. And I think the spectrum of technology, machine learning, pattern recognition, big data, analytics, whatever buzzword you call it, needs to answer these questions that I've sort of got up on this slide as to, and if you can actually start answering these for people, what do I need to know right now? What is your recommendation that I do? What should I always do in such a situation? What can I expect to happen? And what should I avoid? I think that's the experience they're really looking for. And if you can give me an outside-in view and give me metrics or insights about what my competition is doing, what my peers are doing, I think that makes the experience much richer. So I think engagement, has an amazing opportunity today. It has the opportunity to use systems which are possibly, much more evolved. It has possibilities of using technology to answer questions that people are really looking for answers to. And it has the possibilities of actually giving a consumer grade experience. So if you ask me, the environment that I think the enterprises are entering or employees are entering now is really for these three things to come together and truly change the pace of digitization in how people are managed and really stop. One of the things that KPI Soft says, based on our research with clients, is that performance management is actually dead. What one needs to do is unmanaged performance and really translate that into thinking about, are you tapping into the people capital in your organization? Because that's when the experience will really translate into true engagement for people. So I'm looking forward to the next set of the conversation to hear from both Anil and Gurmeet about some of the work that both of them have done. And, I'm sure that some of what I've said will hopefully resonate with them and our audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Prithvi.
So Anil, but that's an area of interest to me as to, I know that we were talking earlier that about some of the work you've done in this space with Xoxoday. So let me sort of ask you to maybe headline some of that. I'm sure it'll be of great interest to all of us.
Sure, Prithvi. Great. So at Freshworks, predominantly from our CEO all the way till the junior most, from the employees per se, we predominantly believe in a tripod model, which focuses on employees, putting employees at the forefront of the experience. That's the primary or a P0 from priority per se, followed by customer and shareholders. Now, what we currently do is predominantly focusing on employee experience, which invariably will have a positive impact and result in a good customer experience, thereby creating a positive shareholder value. Now, keeping this in mind, we have also designed our internal culture codes in a way which reflects this approach and a vision from our CEO. We look at one of our culture called as the creating a happy work environment. Now, happy work environment is predominantly when you walk into any of our Freshworks offices, predominantly signifies how it will bring in a sense of closeness or bring in a sense of community, where you would walk into an office, you would see people spending time. You could see one of the images in the background today, or you would see people connecting over a game of football or billiards or badminton tournament or even cricket for that matter. Now, the challenge would be in terms of today with the lockdown and work from home situation, the only challenge what we look at is how do you transform or convert this sense of belongingness and sense of community from actual physical presence into a virtual experience. Now, that's the biggest challenge in front of us. And so far, the last 2.5, 4 months, there have been a few approaches and a few initiatives taken by one from an organization perspective and a few taken by employees themselves. The first one, what we focused on is the communication. Now, communication during this period or any period for that matter is one of the critical asks where we transparently and timely communication does help in creating a much higher transparency and of course leads to a much better employee engagement levels as well. Now, communication, what we have done over here is created a communication framework which rolls down all the way from the CEO till a people manager level. So our CEO has been meeting the entire organization on a monthly basis, sharing business performances, what are the talent practices we're going to bring in, what are the new initiatives we are going to bring in, and of course, also having a dialogue where employees also ask questions to a CEO saying, what are the next things, when can we expect to return to work, and whatnot. Now, this is the first step. What we have taken is to increase the communication frequency and bring in more transparency, reduce ambiguity and anxiety amongst our employees, especially in a situation like this. That is the first step which we take. Now, the second one is to ensure that we transform our regular work experience, which otherwise people would have felt and experienced it on a day-to-day basis in an office space, to a more virtual setup. The first thing what we did is have a Monday Monk. We have a Monday Monk session every Monday where we have scheduled it for all our employees, where we have our instructor coming in late evening at 7 o'clock and have an e-gym classes or e-classes where our trainer will take all our employees to their daily instructions in terms of how do you, stay physically fit as well. Now, apart from that, we also have one of our employees who is a practitioner. So we've introduced a program called as mindfulness, who will help our employees in more towards the meditation and breathing exercises and so on. Apart from this, we have a few employees who have taken initiatives of having weekly fun activities within our respective teams, especially on a Friday second half where we just want to shut down early, at least mentally, and give some time for ourselves. And apart from that, we also have an online DJ where we could send in our requests and we would have music playing in the background. Another interesting initiative which has come up is with the Parents Club. Now, if you look at it with the current situation, we understand that most of the parents who work from home also need support in terms of how do you manage your kids. I'm sure kids are not allowed to go out of the houses at this point of time. So we have our parents gathering together, sharing their experiences, a few of them taking initiatives of having a storytelling session, having a rhymes narrating sessions, and so on. So we do have a parents club where all the parents come together and share their experiences and at times take some classes for our kids as well. So these are some of the few initiatives which we have come up, apart from also helping our employees continue with a similar experience. We came up with a one-time benefit of setting up a virtual office at their home, just transforming the literal experience which they get at Freshworks at their home. So that's one of the initiatives driven at the beginning of our lockdown period. So these are some of the experience we wanted to share, and many more are in the pipeline, assuming that we're going to continue working from home for a while from now on.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks for sharing what's happening at Freshworks. Gurmeet, would you like to walk us through what's happening at Xoxoday and how you are helping your employees and other organizations as well with your tools, right? So over to you.
Thanks, Krish, for that. And Anil, I think you've done a great, you highlighted those great points, which I think covers pretty much of what activities a client, an employer can do today. So I think you've covered quite a lot that you guys do. It's great to hear all that. Now, just to add to what one point that Anil was emphasizing multiple times and was communication. We at Xoxoday, basically we are ourselves an employee engagement organization in terms of we offer platforms. We in fact use our own platform to drive in the organization to drive 4 of the most important pillars, and we have found them a lot more impactful and relevant in the times like COVID. The pillars being motivation, empowerment, alignment, and definitely communication. Now, a few interesting things we have done internally in the COVID times is a free flow of communication. Our tool has helped us achieve that we've been able to form teams, discuss tasks at hand, create hobby clubs, and also periodic surveys were run by the HR to get feedbacks on how's thing at home in terms of work from home, in terms of other attributes of working, and even personally to an extent of finding if everything is okay or if there's support required by the employee, which the employer can extend the support for. So we've used our tool to the best of it by running surveys. Apart from that, we've obviously done certain fun activities to make sure there's a morale, people's morale are taken care of. So we've done activities like, Happy Friday sessions. We realized during COVID times that we had excellent chefs and excellent singers in our office. We never realized it pre-COVID, and they were sitting right next to us in the desk next to us. And what has helped us keeping the morale high is that there's no dependency on a person in what we do. It's all system driven. So if there is an appreciation that needs to be sent, can be sent by click of a button. And if somebody was going to qualify for a award, it comes in automatically because it's set in the system. So these are few important things that we have done. Obviously, from the CEO's desk, there is a periodic communication. We have a monthly town hall. In fact, the last monthly town hall that we had, just to share with the audience here, is we had the highest number of appreciations within the teams. We kind of doubled up. Our numbers were doubled compared to the last month appreciation that we had done. So that's a great, which also gives us that confidence that yes, people kind of relate to these appreciations and people are open to receive, these kind of appreciations. Now, at a customer level, now having said what we do internally at Xoxoday, we obviously, use our product internally to make sure we do it right. From a customer standpoint, for the ecosystem standpoint, we basically have a product dissected into 3 parts or 3 specific tools, which is predominantly attending to every aspect or the segment of the market. I'll request you to move to the next slide now. Yeah, so this is a quick glimpse. So we have 3 tools with us. Like the tool I was referring to, what we use internally is Impulse, which is for employee engagement. If you would like to engage, again, your employees part of the larger ecosystem of workforce, because your workforce may be indirect as well. So we have a tool called Compass, which could turbocharge your incentive program for your sales teams or dealers and distributors or your extended workforce. Our third product, Plum, helps you distribute rewards at scale and by click of a button. This kind of gives you that power to do rewarding as and when you want without any dependency on a person or kind of calling somebody and saying, hey, let's distribute some rewards. It's your dashboard. You kind of can do it whenever you want it. Now, there's a reason why we have these tools and why these tools are required today. Because if you look at the fact, let's move to the next slide. If you look at a few numbers, 87% of employees expect their employer to support them in balancing work and personal commitment. Now, to do this, you need to be able to talk to your teams. You need to be able to communicate to your teams. You need to be able to pass on the message, collect data, and figure out directly, indirectly, either by the message or the meaning of the message, whether the person has the balance, right balance or not, and take corrective action. And only that's possible if you're able to communicate using some kind of a communication platform or a tool which enables and makes it faster. The second important point here is, to the next slide, is employees who feel their voice is heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered to perform their best work. I think this is self-explanatory. People feel empowered when they can speak, when they can appreciate each other, when they can act, react, they can participate in decision making, maybe at a small group level, if not the org level. But if people can speak and can speak freely, that's one of the most important thing, which is our communication pillar that I was kind of talking at the start of the introduction. Few more important aspects of this is when you look at motivation overall, motivation is not just monetary or one dimension. It is intrinsic and extrinsic, and drivers can be different for different people. It could be because of age, it could be because of kind of profession, work, etc. But everybody needs motivation, and they're predominantly intrinsic and extrinsic. And the fact is, how simple can we make it? Too much of math, too many moving parts, too much of data in too many people's hand, too many stakeholders involved can actually dilute or delay the process. And that's where you need a tool which can kind of digest all this data and throw out the information that is actionable at any given point in time. And another important thing is that the relationship between employer today is not, it was a decade back. It was a lot more transactional at that point in time, but it's a lot more continuous. People, employee also looks at a relationship wherein what would I do in the next 5 years, and how can I contribute more and maybe scale up my skills or scale up the ladder and kind of do more interesting things as he or she moves forward. At an org level, we have also taken very, very strong, important steps on the product to create certain categories which are on the redemption side for the rewardee, which will help a lot in the current COVID challenging times, be it health, be it subscriptions or staples. We've been able to do all of this only for the fact that we've looked at technology as a driver. We've looked at how to solve the problem for today and for tomorrow, and solve it permanently and give the control in the user's hand rather than having the user figure out what to do next. And I think technology has helped us to reach this. And I think this is I'd like to bring in Anil here for him to take this discussion ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Gurmeet. I think I'm totally in agreement. See, any relationship is only effective when there is a dialogue between two much. And we have slowly moved away from a transactional employment to more of a commitment and relationship-based employment, right? So that's how it works in today's age. And so, which means a top-down communication and bottoms-up communication would be equally important. Probably just to share a few experiences, what we currently practice at Freshworks is, one, as a culture, we have imbibed this expectation as one of the culture expectations or one of the culture codes within our organization. We call it as the culture of speak up, where we totally or actively encourage team members and employees across all locations to speak up. When we say speak up, it need not be anything specific to their area of work. It could be anything related to the organization, related to any idea, strategy, new product development, or even questioning us here on any of the upcoming products or strategies. Culture, and it's also recognized as one of the strengths and totally captured as and also identified as one of the core strengths of an individual who really speak up. And apart from that, we have a second option where we have every month, as I mentioned earlier, that we do have an all hands. And we do encourage employees during this all hands to ask questions immediately to our CEO. So we have close to about 3,000 plus employees. And we do have an option to ask questions related to the topics being discussed or information being shared. Again, it's an upward communication which is practiced very frequently and diligently. And there are a few other initiatives, for example, like we have the engagement survey, which is getting conducted, which is again employees sharing information as to what do they feel about various aspects about Freshworks, including about their manager, nature of work, and other areas which will impact them to perform at the next level. And the most recent one, what we included is, assuming that we're going to continue working from home, we're also exploring options in terms of what do employees feel about working from home. So we're conducting a work from home survey to hear them out, to listen from them, what is their experience, what are the challenges they're facing, and accordingly come up with the next steps. So these are some of the initiatives which, again, substantiate and emphasize that, yes, we need to have a bottoms-up communication, equally important to a top-down communication, and a dialogue is always necessary in any relationship. So back to you, Krishan.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you for the information. I'll quickly walk you through how the Freshworks and Xoxoday integration works. Just one of the use cases that we recently built for one of our customers. The platform that you see in the screen is Plum, Xoxoday's rewards and recognition tool. Here in this example, we are trying to reward agents who have closed a high priority ticket within a 3-hour or a 6-hour window within the SLA. So you can have multiple criteria like this. You can use an and or R and create a campaign. Once you set the campaign live, you can, on a click of a button from within Freshdesk itself, see how much points you have earned as an agent. In the next slide, you can see the Freshdesk window. This is the Freshdesk window. And from Freshdesk is an omni-channel tool. You can pretty much see information from Fresh Sales, your CRM, or your live chat tool. You can even chat with your customers via WhatsApp. This is the overall window. Over here, we also have Xoxoday as an app, wherein on a click of a button, you can, in the next slide, you can see, on a click of a button where you have, the points that you have earned, and it comes in your screen. So, and you can also redeem these points from Xoxoday's platform. You can use these points to, Xoxoday is connected with 200 plus brands. So you can pretty much redeem it anywhere you want as an agent. So, pretty much a pretty cool rewards and recognition platform for the customer support agents. Now we have almost come to the end of the session today. New normal of employee engagement. I would like to hear from Anil, Gurmeet, and Prithvi on one-liner on what do you think is the new normal in the employee engagement space. Anil, would you like to go first?
So with the new ways of working, pretty sure that the organizations would also innovate on their operating model, will come up with new practices, especially with the usage of technology kicking in more prominently than the yesteryears. So definitely the new normal is in, and definitely we would look at most of the organization innovating in how they operate, how do they continue driving high levels of employee engagement, and thereby ensuring that the productivity is not taking a hit.
Thank you, Anil. Gurmeet, would you like to go next?
Sure. I think that's a very important aspect of the whole discussion, that things have, in a way we could say, yes, things have changed, and the change for good is a lot of people's opinion as well. I also feel that the new normal would be that people will invest a lot of time, will give a lot of attention on upskilling, because we've realized that, skill is the only way to, kind of move ahead. So I think upskilling is going to be very, very important. And again, technology has played a big role in upskilling people. And the second new normal I feel is, I see already, is that teams will be able to work remotely we are not all that dependent now on meeting someone face to face to meet a timeline or a deadline. We could decide on a timeline, deadline, put a project plan, and discuss, review periodically, even if when we are at homes or not in the office. If not everybody is in the office, for an example, we could still go do that. That's a very, very new thing. We were not used to it some time back. We had to do our daily Monday in all hands to motivate the sales team. But we do it remotely now, for an example. The product team had their Monday town halls or weekly stand-ups. So they are doing it remotely now. It's as effective. So I think the new normal would be the way of working by itself. And we'll all have to kind of live with technology and make sure we solve these in the longer run.
Thank you, Gurmeet. Prithvi, your thoughts on the new normal?
So I think the first thing is, I don't think there is going to be a new normal. I think it's actually going to be a never normal. And I think that organizations will need to, and HR professionals will need to recognize that. I think at the end of the day, it's about using technology and using analytics to be able to help employees make better decisions about how they can perform better. If we can make employees feel that, whether they are distributed or working in a shared workspace or in their old physical workspaces or working across that, as long as they feel that the organization is helping them contribute better, I think that's what people will look for in how they feel engaged and connected back to the organizations that they are with. So I think I agree with the point that the human touch can be delivered in various ways. I think it will put a much higher responsibility on the line manager, and the line manager will look for tools that enable him to do that without always having without always having to come to the HR person to get an answer. And I think wherever he can get tools to do that, I think we will be able to navigate to a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Prithvi. I mean, from all of you, one thing is for certain, right? We are now more than ever reliant on technology, given the immense challenges posed by COVID. And moving forward, I believe technology should be put to best use. Moving on to the next slide. It's vital that employees are able to continue working and staying in contact with technical support provided by hardworking folks in IT. Equally, it has never been more important to provide the utmost in customer care too. With people across the world trying to adapt to new normal, the customer care teams faces a number of challenging behaviors when interacting with customers. These are challenging times, and we need to ensure that we work on 3 things to keep on customer care ready. Number 1 will be to invest in automation, focus on self-service, have the right tools to manage FAQs, chatbots to handle L1 supports, etc. The second most important thing will be customers today reach out to you in multiple channels, right? So we need to equip the agents with an omni-channel tool or a CRM so that the agents are comfortable working in one window. The third is the most important one, which is to make sure that employees are comfortable and motivated. After all, great customer care is all about how people feel, right? And so unless you have happy employees, you cannot have happy customers. With that, we come to an end to the webinar session. We have some interesting questions lined up from our audience today. Let's move to the Q&A session. I think the first question that has come is for Anil. Employee engagement and well-being programs cost money. How can I justify the cost associated with said schemes when cost cutting is on the forefront and becoming the order of the day? That's actually an interesting question. Anil, your thoughts on this?
Sure. Thanks, Roshan. So, see, the first point, what we look at is it really a cost or an investment? The direction in which the organization looks at this kind of an investment predominantly determines what's the level of contribution or value add you get from your own people. Now, the most important part, as I said earlier, is to build that connect and sense of belongingness with the employees. And probably the simplest way to look at it is to align each and everyone's careers or career aspiration with organization's direction. The moment you are able to do this part more streamlined and more seamlessly, we should not be worried about retaining an employee, because the moment a person gets engaged with a specific job, you don't have to worry about the retention factor. So definitely we should not be looking at it as a cost, but more of an investment. And with the current situation, not only the physical health, even the mental health well-being also takes a big precedence in terms of importance for each and every individual. So it's definitely a challenge. And probably the new challenge, the way we look at it, is to not see how do you balance work life, but you'll have to start looking at, how you integrate both work and life together. So probably, this is what you would expect going forward, because most often I recently read a comment as well saying that, hey, we're not working from home. We're rather living at work now. I mean, that's the way you look at it. And as much as companies support during this journey, will definitely keep, all of us more engaged. And definitely it's a great investment to make in, our own people at the end of the day. Yep.
Thanks, Anil. The next question is more on Xoxoday's tools. I think, Gurmeet, it is for you. Xoxoday, do any of the Xoxoday employee engagement tools have a direct impact on revenue? If so, please elaborate on it. Also, please explain how gamification fosters cross-team collaboration and overall employee engagement.
Sure. Good question. So I'll look at the first portion of the question about how has COVID or the current challenges, the time has impacted our revenues. So frankly, I like to answer it two ways. One is I would say vertically. Vertically, I would say from a user perspective, from a usage perspective of the tools that I had explained earlier. One for the employees, one for extended workforce, and one plain pure rewarding tool. The use cases have definitely increased. The uh, overall, the method of the engagement of the point of contacts in the companies have, kind of taken a deep dive into the tools. So one is vertical, wherein in every customer, the usage of the tool by itself has increased, more use cases, and overall traction. If you look at the numbers, just more and more every time when we look at the numbers week on week. So that's a great sign, because tool is delivering the result required and people are finding value in the tool by itself. Second is, I would say, horizontal. Horizontal would be adding new customers. So I'll say from that perspective, we've since we're solving a problem which is present anyways from a long time, but all the more, I would say, relevant now, because face-to-face interactions are not happening much. And then there is a bigger problem to solve of multiple moving parts, and how do you consolidate all of that in a tool. So things have only been good for us. We've helped a lot of our customers help with their plans for engagement or rewarding through our tools. So that's definitely been good for us, and we're happy that we have been able to actually help our clients and help them reach their goals and engagement bit. So that's on the first portion. On the second side, which is gamification, I think there are a lot of understanding about the word gamification itself. I like to maybe explain that quickly. Gamification basically, uh, when you have multiple triggers, points uh, happening like in a game, wherein people kind of get motivated, look at each other. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, gamification is everywhere. It has been there everywhere from a very long time. But from an employer-employee perspective, from a workforce and the employer perspective, it only adds value, because a typical contribution of the gamification is that it'll give you numbers to chase. It'll let you know where you stand. It'll kind of motivate you to do the next thing. It'll kind of visually show you that this is where you are and this is where you can get by taking this action. So I think from that perspective, gamification has always been relevant, and even now I think, we've seen it now that gamification is only helping solve complex incentive programs or complex rewarding programs, because even the employer finds it easier to see a dashboard and see where everybody's progressing, and from a user perspective, you know exactly where you are. So I think that should be my answer to it.
Thank you, Gurmeet. I see 100 plus participants. Participants, you can put in your question in the Q&A section. I can see one last question over here. How can employers or HR teams make their performance management systems more employee-centric? Maybe Priti, maybe you want to take that. Maybe after that, we can hear from Anil on his thoughts as well.
So, as I said, I think
Prithvi, your mic is a little.
can you hear me?
There's a lot of disturbance. In the meantime, maybe Anil, before Prithvi fixes his microphone, can you probably explain your thoughts on this?
Sure. See, as I said, immediate, I think Gurmeet also highlighted that, right? Immediate identification or immediate appreciation or gratification, that's becoming more important and prominent. So what we could look at is probably move, all this while we've been looking at mid-year appraisals or performance management or annual, performance systems. What we could look at is make the journey more of a continuous performance evaluation. See, whether it's personal life or professional life, feedback immediately can always help us learn quickly and move faster. And also, you don't have to wait 12 months to hear the feedback about how your performance was, whether it's positive or areas of improvement and what you need to work on at the end of 12 months. So that gives everyone a chance, in terms of trying to turn things around rather than waiting for a year and then reworking on things and so on. So that's probably one quick thought on top of mind to make it more continuous performance feedback. And accordingly, we start designing the systems which will start aligning with our expectations from the business in terms of making it to make it more continuous rather. Yeah.
Prithvi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the best way to engage people is to help them perform and contribute. And I think that if as long as you can show them that line of sight, it's good. And therefore, I think performance management is a process that, employees have been asking enterprises to reinvent and get rid of or improve, whichever, depending where they lie on the spectrum, for as long as I can remember being in the profession. So I think it is time now to really move away from, measuring and assessing and, doing performance reviews, but really seeing how you can be a performance coach or when anytime, anywhere, so that the employee has access to insight, learnings to actually help them do better. And I think technology has reached a point now where it is affordable. It is, you have the ability to implement at the pace, so that some of that ask that employees have asked to move away from a process-centric mindset approach to really putting people in the center of what performance really is about. I think you can create that practice now. And I think that's what I think some of the companies, that I'm aware of, KPI Soft itself, that's what we've been experimenting with. And I think if that's the mindset with which you approach performance, I think the ways of making sure that whether you're operating in whatever kind of environment, you are successful and you keep your best people with you, I think, will be very possible for enterprises. I'm not sure if that was the question, but that's I think that's what plays on top of my mind.
Well said, Prithvi. I mean, technology, of course, today has been affordable and pretty much we are able to implement things much faster than how things used to be. And yes, of course, thank you so much for your inputs. That said, we have a few more questions. Probably we could take it offline. Just want to hear your thoughts from the audience. How well did you like the webinar? And please feel free to reach out to us. Any questions that you have, anything that you would like us to elaborate on, feel free to write to us. And please do follow us on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, audience. You have been great. 100 plus participants on a working day is amazing. Thank you so much, all the speakers, Anil, Prithvi, Gurmeet. Thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you all. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Prashant. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.